Hi everyone, Bennett McDowell from traderscoach.com. I thought now would be a good time to do another market update since it's been another week of selling to kind of give you an idea of how it's performing the market overall. And if you remember, we did a market forecast last week, and actually those price levels that we looked at, we called for a retracement, that happened, and now we're in the midst of another leg to the downside. So good time for an update. And so that's why we're here today. Now, today is Friday, and it, of course, is March 6th today. The time is about 10:58 a.m. on the Pacific coast here. So let's take a look at the markets. We're going to be taking a look at the markets from a technical standpoint. And we do that as technical traders. What we believe, and it's really important that you understand this, that everything in that involves the economy, news events, everything is represented by price. Okay, the market tells us exactly what's going on in the world by the movement in price of major indexes. So that's what we look at when we use technical analysis. So let's take a look at the charts. We're going to start out with the Dow Jones, and then we're going to also take a look at the S&P. And I'm going to give you a glimpse on the short-term, intermediate, and long-term aspect of the market. I'm also, since it's Friday, going to let you know how we think it's going to close today based on the intraday time frames on the Dow. So let's start with the Dow and then work our way to the S&P, and I'll show you some charts right now. So the first grouping of charts we're going to look at is that of the Dow, which is in front of you now. Now on the far right hand side we have the weekly chart. This is going to give us a glimpse into the longer term outlook of the market. Each price bar represents a full week or 5 trading days. And if we take a look at the Dow in the middle, this is the daily chart, and this represents the intermediate trend. So each price bar represents 1 day. And then on the far left is our shorter term outlook on the market. We're going to use the 60-minute chart or the 1-hour chart. And this gives us a look at the short-term outlook in the market. So each price bar on that 60-minute chart represents 1 hour. All right, so these time frames kind of divide the same market, which is the Dow, up into the long-term aspect, the intermediate term aspect, and the short-term aspect. All right, let's start with the long-term aspect. I'm going to open up the weekly chart. And this trend that we've been up, this long-term trend that we've been up for quite some time, has lasted many, many years. So when we get a correction like this, and it seems severe,
Reversal bar entry.
always
Now.
remember to go back to where the trend began, and you'll really put it in perspective. And the perspective here represents a normal correction down to this target zone based on a Fibonacci retracement, which is what technical traders use to figure out target zones when markets correct. And the target zone here for the Dow is between 22,000 and 257. But it's also possible, because it's a zone, that it could reach down to the lower part of the zone, which would be 17,731. Now those numbers certainly would sound extreme, especially, if you were way back up here where the market was, close to 30,000. All right. But actually this is a normal correction, okay, in an ongoing trend. Now, we're not mystics. We never know what news is going to come around to cause markets to sell off like this. In this case, it happens to be the coronavirus. But, it could be anything. Back in the year 2000, when the dot-com bubble bursted, it was the dot-com, then followed what? The terrible terrorist attack on 9/11. And that caused it to reach down into the Fibonacci retracement levels at that time. So we never know what news events are going to cause it. So don't be caught up in the news. Instead, watch the price and use your technical analysis for the higher probability retracement zones. 70% of the time, markets retrace to these areas once the retracement is confirmed. All right, so that's where we're looking for the overall market to go. Because this is a long-term chart, you're looking at several weeks before it gets down there, possibly, of course, several months, more likely. All right, the next chart we can look at is the daily chart. And this is an interesting chart because on this chart here, we're getting a glimpse at the market from a more intermediate perspective. And notice momentum measured by this indicator here called the owl is down, and indicating also a major wave 3 there. And also too, notice that the PTF here is red as well. That's bearish. And the trend line is down. So we have all three of these primary indicators pointing to the downside. So basically the PTF is really a very interesting indicator. That's the one in the center because it has a 75% probability. And when it's red, basically you find the lowest price bar in that red area, which is this one. And there's a 75% probability prices are going to go below that eventually. So this is still very bearish based on that. Now, what we like to do is also take a look at the short-term outlook on the far left here. That's the 60-minute chart right here. And notice here last week during our forecast, we said we were going to get a bounce, and we got it. And the level we picked for the bounce was pretty much right on. This is a Elliott wave 3, 4, and now we're heading down into a wave 5 right here. So that's kind of interesting. So based on the short-term range, we are also heading back to the downside. How far down? Well, the target range based on the fib extension reaches all the way down to this area here. And that's between 24,260 down to 22,464. So that's a 3, 4, and 5. Notice this is red, red, and red here as well. So short term, we're heading down. When we get to the 5 area here on this left-hand chart, that's going to be the bottom of wave 3 over here. All right, so the target range for wave 3 is 24,260 to 22,464. Okay, so that's where prices are heading. All right, and so this is a minor 3 based off the 60-minute chart. This is a 4 up here based off the 60-minute chart, and a 5. Now, if that doesn't make sense to you, that's probably because you don't use Elliott wave. But what you have to take away from this is that the market is coming down, and this is the long-term target range over here between 22,256, all right, all the way to 17,731, and this is the short-term target range here over the next, let's say, several weeks. Now, after you get into a 3 here, then you'll have a more significant bullish correction, and then another move down on this chart for wave 5 that will bring it into this target range here. So that's the overall outlook. All right, next I want to take a look at the short-term situation for today on the actual Dow Jones. Now, again, I have 3 charts, but these are all very short-term time frames. I've got the 2-minute chart on the left, the 5-minute on the middle, and the 30-minute on the far right. On the 5-minute, we have a red-colored PTF. That's right here. And we also have it red on the 30 minutes. It is yellow on the 2-minute. So we may get a slight move up based off the 2-minute, but it should end the day to the downside because of the red PTF here. So I think what we're experiencing now at approximately, what time is it here? About 11:10 or so, you're experiencing a little bit of an updraft at this point in the market that should eventually give way to more selling. So I expect this day to close in the bearish territory. Now, one last thing I want to take a look at is, of course, the S&P. A lot of people follow the S&P. Okay, so here are 3 charts for the S&P futures. This is the continuous contract. We got the 60-minute again on the left, the daily in the center, and the weekly on the far right. And they look very similar to the Dow, which is not surprising. All right, so you got a target zone here based off the 60-minute down to 28.15 to 26.16. That would be a wave 5 to the downside there. And that will be the bottom of the daily charts, wave 3, which is similar. And of course, you have a very similar outlook on the weekly chart. So very close correlation to the actual Dow Jones. If we quickly go over and take a look at some of the numbers on the Dow right now, we're looking at the Dow is down about 566 points at 25,555.14 at this time. All right, so that's it for today's market update. The theme is going to be selling. We're not done yet. We've got another leg down that we're in the process of unfolding right now on the Dow. And when that gets to that target range that I told you before, then we can expect a bullish move to the upside, followed eventually by more selling. So unfortunately, we're stuck with this selling situation for the next probably several months. But we may get a little reprieve at some point. So I will do another one of these market updates when we reach the target zone that we're expected. Otherwise, at this particular point, there's some tremendous opportunities to the short side. The wonderful thing about being a trader in the markets is that we can make money in bullish and bearish markets. So that's a very unique situation in a business environment. The last thing I want to just remind everybody there, pay attention to price, okay? Everything that we need to know is built into the price of the market. So the price represents all the news, it represents all the greed and fear out there. Everything that's known about a particular market you're looking at is represented in the price. So don't clutter your mind with news events that may or may not be real, corporate reports that may or may not be real. Focus on price. All right, and we'll see you back here after those markets reach the target zone, sometimes probably at the end of next week. All right, thanks so much.
Serving traders worldwide since 1998, TradersCoach.com provides educational services for traders and investors. We've developed trading software to help traders of every level improve their skills. Our site is dedicated to providing you with all the resources, software, and educational material you need to achieve your trading goals. It's because of our years of experience, attention to detail, and exceptional customer service that we're the right choice. Call us today.